The first time Karen saw my Rolls-Royce, I knew I was in for trouble. You know that look someone gives when they think you don't belong? Multiply that by 10 and add a clipboard. That was the face standing on my doorstep. It was a quiet, sunny Saturday morning. I had just pulled into my driveway after picking up my dream car, a sleek, jet-black Rolls-Royce Ghost. No loud music, no showboating, just a simple, proud moment in front of my own house. I'd worked my entire life to afford that car. Years of early mornings, overtime shifts, skipped vacations, and sacrifice had led to that exact moment. I even parked it perfectly in my garage, with the door half down while I set up my home charger. That's when I heard the knock. No, bang. It was the kind of knock that screams trouble before you even answer it. I opened the door, still holding the car key in my hand, and there she was, Karen. The queen of our HOA, self-appointed guardian of neighborhood standards, and the unofficial local detective of everyone's business. Her hair was tightly curled, sunglasses too big for her face, and lips pursed so hard they looked like they might collapse into themselves. "Is that your car?" she barked, pointing dramatically toward the garage like I had parked a UFO there. I was caught off guard but still polite. "Yes, it's mine," I replied. "Just picked it up this morning." I smiled, thinking maybe she'd offer a congratulations. Instead, she looked like she'd just swallowed a lemon. "We don't allow those kinds of cars here," she snapped. I blinked, confused. "I'm sorry?" I asked, thinking maybe I misheard her. "That type of vehicle," she said, emphasizing each word like I was slow to understand. "It's completely inappropriate for our community. It's flashy. It's showy. It attracts attention." I looked behind her. Birds were chirping. A lawnmower buzzed in the distance. Not a single neighbor in sight. "I didn't realize owning a nice car was a violation," I said calmly. She immediately pulled out her clipboard like it was a holy book. Page 14. Section C, Community Image Standards. Vehicles must not disrupt the aesthetic of the neighborhood. She tapped the page and looked at me like she'd just delivered a court ruling. "Ma'am, it's parked in my garage," I said. "It's not on the street. It's not making noise. It's my property." She wasn't having it. "You're bringing down the tone of the entire block," she hissed. "Our community is about simplicity and moderation. We don't want a car like that sending the wrong message." "What message is that?" I asked, trying not to laugh. "That someone here worked hard and bought something they love?" Her eyes narrowed. "This is a peaceful neighborhood, not Beverly Hills." I started to respond, but she turned on her heel and stormed off without another word, muttering something about enforcing consequences. I stood there on my porch, stunned. I wasn't being loud. I wasn't throwing a party. I was just a guy who bought a car and parked it in his own garage. What was the crime here? Being proud of my hard work? Still, I shrugged it off. I thought, okay, maybe she just had a bad morning. Maybe she'd cool off. Maybe this was just a strange misunderstanding. I had no idea this was just the beginning. Later that day, I told a few neighbors about the incident. Most of them rolled their eyes and said, "That's Karen for you." Apparently, I wasn't the first person she'd targeted. She once fined someone $200 for hanging string lights that were too festive. Another neighbor got written up for having flower pots in the wrong color. And now, it was my turn, because my car was too luxurious. The next morning, I walked outside to get the paper and noticed something taped to my garage door. Bright orange. I pulled it off and read it, HOA violation, vehicle in violation of community standards. Fine, $500 per day until resolved. My jaw dropped. This wasn't a joke. This was official. It had the HOA letterhead, her signature, and the full fine amount listed right there. $500 per day for owning a car. I stood there reading it 3 times over just to make sure I wasn't imagining it. I had done nothing wrong. My car was legally registered, insured, and parked in my own space. That afternoon, I sent an email to the HOA asking for clarification. I attached a photo of my garage, the car safely inside it, and asked which rule I had violated exactly. The reply? Silence. No email back. I called the HOA number. Voicemail. Left a message. Still nothing. Then that evening, I saw Karen walking by my driveway again, clipboard in hand, eyeing my garage like it was a crime scene. I opened the door and asked if she had time to explain what the actual issue was. She didn't even look at me. Just walked away. No words, no answers, nothing. That's when it hit me. This wasn't about rules. This was personal. Karen didn't like me. Or what I represented. Or maybe just the fact that I had something she didn't. I wasn't trying to show off. I didn't host a car show in the front yard. I wasn't revving the engine at 2 a.m. I was just a guy with a nice car who wanted to enjoy the fruits of his labor. But to her, that was unacceptable. I could see the way she looked at the car, like it was some kind of threat. And now she was determined to make my life miserable because of it. What Karen didn't know was that I wasn't about to roll over. I had receipts, security cameras, and a platform. And I was ready to fight back, not with shouting or drama, but with facts, footage, and a little bit of online heat. Because if this was how she treated me over a car, I could only imagine how many others she had bullied into silence. This time, she picked the wrong neighbor. By the next morning, it became painfully clear that Karen wasn't going to let this go. I woke up early, still half asleep, walked outside to grab a coffee from the corner store, and there it was again. A second violation notice, this time bigger and bolder than before, taped not only to my garage door but also to my mailbox. Final warning: immediate removal of unauthorized vehicle required. Daily fine increased to $750 until compliance. I couldn't believe what I was reading. I hadn't even gotten a chance to dispute the first violation, and here she was, escalating things like I had committed some criminal act. This was no longer about a car. It was about control. Karen wasn't just enforcing HOA rules, she was using them as a weapon. That's when I decided to take things seriously. I sat down with my laptop and started going through the official HOA bylaws line by line. Not once did it say anything about specific brands of vehicles, or that luxury cars were prohibited. There was a vague mention of commercial vehicles and unregistered cars parked on the street for over 48 hours, but my Rolls-Royce was neither of those things. It was registered, insured, parked either in my garage or neatly on my driveway, and completely within legal bounds. I took screenshots, saved PDFs, and compiled everything I could. Then I emailed the HOA again. This time, I copied every board member listed on their website. In the email, I wrote politely but firmly, pointing out that there was no written violation being broken, and I attached images of my car parked respectfully, along with clips of Karen's notices. I requested a formal review and an immediate withdrawal of the fines. That same day, I called the HOA office again, but once again got no answer. Straight to voicemail. It was starting to feel like they were ducking me on purpose. That evening, something even weirder happened. As I was pulling into my driveway, I noticed a person crouched across the street. Camera in hand, taking pictures of my car as I parked. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but as soon as I stepped out and walked toward them, they bolted behind Karen's hedges. Suspicious, right? I went back and checked my security footage, and sure enough, there were at least 2 different times during the day when people had walked past my house slowly, snapping photos. One even paused to zoom in on my license plate. I don't know if Karen had recruited her little army of HOA inspectors, or if she had simply spread the word to make me look like a problem in the neighborhood. Either way, it was getting creepy. So, I decided to get ahead of it. I edited together a short video using footage from my security cameras, just enough to show Karen pacing around my driveway with her phone out, zooming in on my garage at night. I blurred her face and made sure it was anonymous, but the title said it all: caught my HOA spying on my garage because I own a Rolls-Royce. Within hours of posting it online, the video started gaining traction. The comments came pouring in: "This is harassment. Sue her. You should blast the whole HOA." I was surprised by how many people had experienced similar situations. Apparently, HOA horror stories were more common than I thought. Karen, however, was unfazed. The very next morning, I received yet another notice, this time folded in an envelope and hand-delivered to my door. Inside was a letter from the HOA, citing me for unauthorized surveillance equipment visible from public property. They were now accusing me of violating privacy laws, for using my own security cameras, on my own property, to protect my own car. It was insane. But I wasn't giving up. I printed out all the documents, videos, and timestamps, and headed to the next HOA board meeting, determined to speak up in person. I walked into the clubhouse and instantly felt the tension. Karen was sitting at the front table like she was presiding over a courtroom, not a community meeting. Her lips tightened when she saw me, and the room fell silent as I approached the microphone during the community concerns portion of the meeting. "Good evening," I said, voice steady but strong. "I'm here today to formally dispute the multiple fines and false violations issued against me regarding my vehicle." I laid out everything: the HOA rules, the lack of any regulation against luxury vehicles, the unexplained spying, the camera footage, the anonymous photos, and now the bizarre accusation about security equipment. Karen tried to interrupt me twice, but I kept going. I even printed out the comments from the video I posted, hundreds of people supporting me, condemning the harassment, and calling out the HOA's abuse of power. The rest of the board looked uncomfortable. Some exchanged glances. One even leaned over and whispered something to the treasurer. When I finished speaking, there was a pause. Karen tried to regain control. "This is not a debate," she said. "We have the authority to maintain standards," but someone from the board cut her off. "Let's vote on whether this matter requires independent review," the man said. Karen's face turned red. She slammed her pen on the table, but the motion passed. I walked out of that meeting knowing one thing: Karen was losing her grip. She had pushed too hard, too fast, and now people were starting to see through the act. This wasn't about neighborhood safety or property values. This was about ego. She wanted to control everything, and anyone, that didn't fit her vision of what our community should be. I was just the latest target. But thanks to cameras, documents, and a little public exposure, her grip was starting to slip. And little did I know, Karen wasn't done yet. Because what she did next would push things past the point of no return, and put me in a situation I never expected. She was about to make her boldest move yet. One that would leave me standing in handcuffs on my own property, and the entire neighborhood watching. 3 days after the HOA meeting, just when I thought maybe Karen was finally backing off, I got a letter in the mail that made my stomach drop. It wasn't from the HOA, it was from the city. A formal notice informing me that my property had been reported for unlicensed commercial activity. Apparently, someone had submitted a complaint saying I was running a luxury car rental business out of my home. I stared at the paper in disbelief. This had Karen written all over it. The only car I had was mine. There was no business, no website, no traffic, no ads, just a man who worked hard and finally got something nice for himself. But to Karen, that Rolls-Royce represented everything she despised, success she couldn't control. That same afternoon, 2 city inspectors showed up. One of them, a tall guy with a kind face, said, "Don't worry, we've seen complaints like this before. We just need to check it out and document the property." I nodded and let them in. I showed them the garage, the car, the charger, and even offered to open my bank account or show my personal records if needed. They politely declined. After 15 minutes, they left and said there were no violations and nothing to worry about. Still, I couldn't shake the anger boiling inside me. Karen had taken this to a whole new level. She wasn't just fining me or harassing me, she was trying to ruin my reputation and get the city involved with fake accusations. The next day, it all escalated to a level I never saw coming. I came home from work around 5:30 p.m., tired, hungry, and just wanting peace. I pulled into the driveway and saw Karen standing at the edge of my lawn, arms folded, staring like a hawk. I didn't even look at her. I just drove straight into my garage and began lowering the door. That's when she shouted, "Stop right there." I paused, stepped out of the car, and asked calmly, "What now, Karen?" She marched up my driveway like she owned it. "You're being served an emergency violation," she said, waving a stack of papers in front of my face. "You are officially operating a disruptive facility that violates HOA safety regulations." I raised my eyebrows. "You're calling my garage a facility now?" She ignored me. "We've contacted law enforcement. You'll be removed if you don't comply." And right on cue, a police cruiser pulled up. My heart sank. I hadn't done anything wrong, but when cops arrive, it never feels safe. 2 officers stepped out. Karen immediately ran over to them and started pointing wildly at my garage, my car, and me. I couldn't hear everything she was saying, but I caught phrases like aggressive behavior, running a business, and refusing to comply. One officer stayed with her while the other approached me. "Sir," he said, polite but firm, "we received a report that you've been engaging in unauthorized commercial activity and disturbing the peace." I took a deep breath and explained the entire situation. I told him about the personal vehicle, the false HOA complaints, the city inspectors, the meeting, the video I had posted, and even the footage of Karen snooping around at night. The officer seemed to understand and asked if I had proof. I said yes, everything was backed up, videos, photos, even city clearance. As I turned to go inside and grab the USB stick, Karen suddenly yelled, "He's tampering with evidence. He's going to destroy documents." I froze. The second officer ran over and joined the first. They asked me to step back. I complied. Then came the words that felt like a punch to the chest, "Sir, we're going to need you to put your hands behind your back." I stared in disbelief. "Are you serious?" "This is just for detainment," one of them said. "We'll sort it out at the station. Please don't resist." I felt the cold steel click around my wrists. My neighbor across the street had come outside and was filming. Someone else was already whispering, "What's going on?" And there was Karen, standing with her arms crossed, smirking like she had just won a war. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I just said one sentence as they walked me toward the cruiser, "You're going to regret this." They took me downtown. They sat me in a holding room. An hour passed. Then another. Eventually, a detective came in and said the city inspectors had verified that there was no business being run, and no disruption had been caused. The officers were apologetic. "We're sorry, sir. False reporting happens sometimes. You're free to go." I walked out of the precinct a free man, but far from okay. This wasn't just harassment anymore. This was character assassination. Karen had crossed every line imaginable, all because she couldn't stand the sight of a car that reminded her she didn't control everything. When I got home, I found more than just silence. My phone had blown up. My video was now trending. HOA harasses man over Rolls-Royce, the title read. It had over 1 million views already. Commenters were furious. People shared their own HOA nightmares. Lawyers reached out offering free help. Even someone from a local news station contacted me, asking if I was willing to go on camera. But the best part? Neighbors started talking. Real talking. People I'd never met knocked on my door, telling me they had been fined for nonsense too: kids' bikes in the yard, Christmas lights that stayed up too long, lawn chairs that were too colorful. Karen had ruled the neighborhood with fear for years. But now? The mask had slipped. Later that evening, I checked my security system and downloaded the full footage of the incident: Karen yelling at the cops, waving fake documents, trying to stop me from going inside. I posted the full uncut version online with the caption, "This is how a woman got me falsely detained because of a car she didn't like." It exploded. Within 24 hours, the video had over 3.5 million views. Comments poured in from every country. People offered support, legal advice, and even organized a neighborhood forum to vote on new HOA leadership. What Karen didn't realize in her obsession with control was that the internet doesn't like bullies. Especially the kind who use fake rules and lies to ruin someone's life over jealousy and power. And just like that, everything started to shift. People were finally seeing her for what she truly was: not a protector of the neighborhood, but a power-hungry control freak who abused her position. I wasn't just fighting back anymore. I was leading a movement. And Karen? She had no idea the storm that was coming next. By the next morning, the storm Karen had created was completely out of her control. I woke up to hundreds of notifications, texts, DMs, email alerts. My video of the handcuff incident had gone viral overnight, sitting at nearly 4 million views. Major pages had reposted it. I was getting messages from journalists, influencers, and even a lawyer from out of state who specialized in HOA abuse cases and offered to help me for free. But none of that compared to what happened right outside my own door. A group of neighbors had gathered, some I barely knew, others I'd only waved at in passing. They all had the same look on their faces, tired of being silent. One of them, a retired veteran named Mr. Gardner, stepped forward and said, "We're done letting Karen bully us. She's made this neighborhood miserable for too long." Another woman added, "We're organizing a vote to remove her from the HOA board. You won't be standing alone anymore." For the first time since this nightmare started, I felt the weight on my shoulders begin to lift. I wasn't the problem. Karen was. And finally, people were willing to say it out loud. That same afternoon, a petition was circulating, digitally and on paper, calling for Karen's immediate removal. It spread like wildfire. People shared stories that made mine look tame. One guy said she fined him $100 because his dog's collar was too bright. Another said she banned their daughter from selling lemonade, claiming it was unsanctioned commerce. These weren't just power plays, they were deeply personal attacks, all hidden behind the mask of HOA policy. I uploaded a second video, showing the full backstory: the first warning, the fake violations, the stalking, the city inspection, and finally the arrest. No dramatization, no editing tricks, just raw truth. By evening, it hit 6.7 million views. News stations called non-stop. I gave one interview, carefully sticking to facts. "I just parked my own car in my own garage," I said on live TV. That's it. And I ended up in handcuffs because someone abused their position. The clip was shared everywhere. Even celebrities reposted it. But while the internet lit up, Karen tried to lay low. She didn't come out for 2 days. Her car was parked tightly in her driveway, curtains drawn, the neighborhood quieter than ever. But we all knew she was watching. She always was. Then came the HOA emergency meeting. It was packed. Dozens of neighbors, many who'd never even attended before, showed up to vote. The room buzzed with tension. Karen sat stiffly at the board table, flanked by two remaining allies. Her face was pale, jaw clenched, clipboard nowhere in sight. She looked nothing like the woman who had once barked rules and marched up driveways. She looked cornered. When the floor opened for comments, the floodgates burst wide. People took turns sharing how Karen had fined, humiliated, or threatened them. One woman, a mother of 3, broke down in tears talking about how Karen forced her to remove her kid's swing set because it didn't match the neighborhood's visual language. Then they let me speak. I walked to the mic, held my phone, and played the 10-second clip of Karen shouting to the cops that I was destroying evidence. The room gasped. "I've never run a business from my garage," I said calmly. "I bought a car. That's all. A car I worked my whole life to afford. And for that, I was stalked, fined, and falsely arrested. I was harassed not because I broke any rule, but because I broke her illusion of control." You could hear a pin drop. Then it was time to vote. The motion was clear: remove Karen as HOA president immediately and prohibit her from holding any future leadership position. It passed, overwhelmingly. Cheers erupted. Some clapped, some cried, and some just looked relieved. Karen stood slowly, stared across the room like it was all some kind of betrayal, and walked out without a word. No apology. No explanation. Just silence. Her reign was over. But the story didn't end there. News of her removal hit local channels and online outlets. My inbox filled with messages from people across the country, people dealing with the same kind of power-hungry HOA presidents, asking how we did it. I decided to take all the footage, all the documents, and all the testimonies and turn it into a mini docu-series about HOA corruption. I titled it, Garage Justice: The Day a Rolls-Royce Took Down Karen. Each part detailed a different moment of the saga. It wasn't just about revenge, it was about education. If it happened to me, it could happen to anyone. With Karen gone, the neighborhood slowly started healing. People painted their mailboxes whatever color they wanted. Kids played freely. Someone even bought a red Mustang convertible and parked it proudly in their driveway. No one said a word. The HOA board, now under new leadership, dropped all fake violations and formally apologized to me in writing. I framed that letter and hung it right next to my garage keypad. As for the Rolls-Royce, it's still in my garage. Still gleaming, still turning heads, and still completely mine. But now, it's more than just a car. It's a symbol of standing your ground. Of not letting people like Karen win. I drive it not just with pride, but with peace. Sometimes, doing nothing wrong is enough to become someone's target. All it takes is one person with a clipboard and a bad attitude to turn your life upside down. But if you fight smart, stay calm, and don't back down, justice can find its way, even in a quiet neighborhood where the loudest voice used to be the most dangerous. Karen tried to silence me with fines, lies, and even cuffs. But in the end, her own actions made the loudest noise. And now, that garage she hated so much? It's the most peaceful place in the neighborhood.